people, and welcome to my review for Deepwater Horizon. So Deepwater Horizon stars Mark Wahlberg, John Malkovich, Kate Hudson, as well as a few other actors, and it revolves around the true story of the Deepwater Horizon, which was the biggest oil rig explosion in recorded history that laid oil all over the Gulf of Mexico for over 70 days, and was really something that could have been avoided. So this movie revolves around the people who were involved in that incident, how they survived it, the effects that it had on them, and so on and so forth. So this is the second collaboration with Peter Berg, the director, and Mark Wahlberg. They previously did Lone Survivor, which got very good reviews and a couple, some Oscar buzz. And then also we also have the new one coming out about the Boston Marathon. So this is the number 2 in the unofficial trilogy of true stories with Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg. So Deepwater Horizon was a movie I was pretty excited to see. The trailers I thought were fine. I didn't think they were anything exceptional, but the reviews have been fantastic for the movie. So I went in expecting to love this movie, but I can say that I did really like it. The dialogue is by far some of the best I've seen all year. It's very human, it's very relatable at times, and it just felt natural, and it felt like what the characters would say, which is something Peter Berg did really well. The cinematography too, sometimes it got a bit to the point that it's like, what's going on, I can't really see, but that was only really in the disaster scene, which I thought was very, very well played, because really it's not like the people who were there on the oil rig really knew what was happening anyway and couldn't really see a way out, so that's, why a lot of them died because of it. So I really liked that choice with the cinematography, and other than that, it was just, there was some great shots of the ocean, the oil rig explosion, it all looked really good. The acting, too, from everyone is very, very good, especially, Mark Wahlberg. Of course, he's expected to be the standout, and of course he is. Everyone did a really good job with their acting performances. The CGI, too, also looked fantastic. The oil rig itself, they obviously didn't blow up a real oil rig, so it clearly had to have been CGI, and the CGI was fantastic. It was just mind-boggling how well crafted it was. And also the explosion of the rig is also an incredibly intense scene, and all the scenes following afterwards are quite intense. Now that does lead me to one of my issues. Eventually the intensity did wear off, because the oil rig explosion scene lasts for about 30 to 40 minutes, which I think was a bit too long for that. But of course, it's what the whole movie revolves around, but still, I think they could have chopped out 15 minutes, because it did stay intense for most of the time, but there were a few scenes where it just sort of became dull because there was no intensity to it. So that was a huge issue with it. The scene after the explosion, too, was also very, very well done. It's a scene where I don't really want to spoil anything, so I won't describe the scene, but it really displayed how it affected the survivors and how they felt afterwards, and how terrible they felt on the inside. It was a fantastic final scene that really summed up the movie. I was saying about a 6 out of 10, but that one scene bumped my grade up 1 whole point, simply because it really tied the movie all together, and it gave it a fantastic, unforgettable finish. And to my best point about this movie, it doesn't have a happy ending. See, with a lot of true stories that are very depressing, they usually try to have a happy ending so that the characters can be resolved, so that the conflict is ended. But in this movie, there is no happy ending, which made it feel very realistic. Peter Berg definitely did a great job with that, because you were just sort of shaken by what happened and how avoidable it could have been. And the events afterwards, they have, of course, like every true story does, they show what the characters did afterwards, etc. And though it's preachy, it really does display how terrible the event was, how many lives it took, and it was very, very powerful that they didn't go out with the happy ending. I do have some bads, though. It is very unengaging for the first act. In the first act, there's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of explaining about the oil rig, explaining the emotional connections between the characters, and it did not work off well. It was very, very weak. It was very, very uninteresting, just purely unengaging. I didn't really care about what was going on because they didn't give me a reason to. They were setting up characters, but it didn't necessarily feel too much like development. Because I think that there is a difference between setting up characters and developing them. Developing them is where you go into what they do, what they are, who they are, and it's entertaining. Setting them up is just basically showing what they did. And for some of the characters, not all of them, like not the main characters, but for some of them, they definitely had it so that it was just setting them up. And that was a bit annoying, and it really left the first act very unengaging, and it's very repetitive. It's an hour and 50 minutes. Again, I think they could have cut 20 minutes off. This is pretty much a premise for an hour film, and obviously they stretched it across, but I honestly think that they didn't really need to make it that long. It went on for an excessive amount of time, and sometimes there were a lot of boring scenes simply because it was very repetitive and very much the same thing. That being said, I still very much like Deepwater Horizon, and I would give it a 7 out of 10. I'm excited to see their next movie about the marathon and all the the terrorist things that happened there, and I actually saw a teaser to that in front of this, which I've never really seen a director have a movie so close that they can put a teaser in front of their own movie, but that was cool to see. So I'm excited to see that one, and yeah, I did not get to see Lone Survivor, and I don't think I can currently, but eventually I probably will get to seeing that movie, just because I'm interested to see what he does with other true stories, Peter Berg that is. Alright, that concludes my review. I am Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.